All right. All right, guys, welcome to class. So today we're going to be taking a look at finishing. We have a little bit to finish in 9.1. We've talked about stuff. We'll just put it in the notes a little bit. And then we'll go to 9.2, comparing Sparta and Athens. All right, so let's finish up, and we'll be taking our notes. I have that pulled up on this uh, on the screen right here. So let's see if I can get, yeah, there we go. All right. So you can take your notes with me. I'm on page 264 of our book. All right. So we had Xerxes the First, again, trying to conquer Greece. And so remember, so there's a few major battles that happen here. We'll focus on the three major. Now, obviously, any campaign is more complicated than this, but here are, kind of the three main battles that happen. There's Thermopylae. Let's see. I always spell it wrong. Right? And at Thermopylae, the Spartans held the Persians for a while, until the Persians were able to get around them. Right, and it was the traitor in history known as Ephialtes who lets the Persians around. We watched the video about Thermopylae already, and it's shortly after this that they burn Athens itself as well. Athens burned, and then following the Battle of Thermopylae, we have the Battle of Salamis. Now, most of the people of Athens were able to escape Athens, so good for them. But like I said, but the city still gets burned, which is a bummer for the people living in Athens. Their houses and stuff are gone. Next, we have the Battle of Salamis, and this is where the Athenian led navy surrounds, or we'll say traps, more than surrounds, traps, and destroys much of the Persian fleet. Right, and this is with the triremes, like we took a look at on the video yesterday. And then there's the Battle of Platia. And this is the video that was featured in the History Channel documentary, The Story of All of Us. And this is where the Spartan and the Athenians were there too. The Spartans didn't have very many boats at this time, but the Athenians were there as well. And the Spartan-led soldiers defeat the Persians on land. And so that basically ends the Persian invasion, and the Persians go back. Like we talked about in one of the previous videos, the Persians were able to accomplish a lot of what they set out to do, but they weren't able to consistently defeat the Greeks in battle for a lot of reasons, including it was hard for them to beat the Greek hoplites. So Persia is defeated, and Greece remains free. depending on who you are. If you're still, a helot living in Sparta, you probably don't feel very free. But the Greek city-states continue to be able to rule themselves. All right, so let's take a look now at section 2, or page 266, Sparta and Athens. Right. Okay, so now we've talked some about this in some of the other videos and discussion, so we won't cover it super in depth. So let's do life for men and boys in Sparta. So if you were a male in Sparta and you weren't, remember, like 6 out of every 7 Spartans is a slave, helots. So life is very different for them. They're doing, the regular farming and stuff. There's that middle class, I forget what they were called, who make a lot of the weapons and stuff that are part of Sparta as well. And then you have, kind of this top level Spartans that are, kind of the citizens. They're the ones who get talked about the most. And they spend, like we talked about, almost all their time learning to fight. So, so from the ages of 7 to 12, and I'm kind of using the life of a Spartan soldier there on page 267. So from 7 to 12, you are living at home with basic education. Then from 12 to 18, there's physical training and exercise. 18 to 20, there's military training. 20, 30, you have a military service. And then at age 30, you have full citizenship, and that's when you can finally that's when you can finally start to have a family in your own home. For a lot of your life, you're living in from the age of 20 to 30, you live in the barracks, where the soldiers are. And that's kind of your focus, what you're doing. For 10 years, you're training to be a soldier. And if you live to be 30, then you have full citizenship. And then once you're, then at the age of 60, you are finally done with the army. So, those important citizens, those main powerful people in Sparta, they were the Hoplites, the heavily armored infantry, and the other groups of people, they were the ones who, maybe some of them could be Hoplites too, if you were that middle class, but, helots and the middle class folks, they were the ones who, were slingers or javelin guys, maybe some archers for the Spartan army. And it was a pretty harsh life without luxury. And you were taught to lie and be cunning, to steal. Lie, steal, be cunning. Like there's this story here that mentions on page 267. you weren't given much food as a kid, but if you stole food, you could eat it. So one youth, this is from Plutarch, having stolen a fox and hidden under his coat, allowed it to tear out his very organs with its claws and teeth, and died rather than betray his theft. So this is kind of, like today in, when we watch when you're watching a cartoon or something, and usually it's not always this way in today's cartoons, but usually the main kid in the cartoon learns his lesson. He needs to forgive his sister, or to apologize when something's wrong, or try to fix the thing that he broke. Those types of regular lessons that we see in kid shows today. For Spartans, though, this story of this kid who stole something, and then he wouldn't tell anyone, and even as he's being like questioned, did you take it? Did you take this? There's a fox that's eating his body, while people are asking if he stole anything, but he's not showing any signs of pain or anything. And so that kid's, that's the kid. That's the type of lessons that you should learn as a kid in Sparta. To rather let a fox eat out your insides before you admit that you stole something. So as far as what's right or wrong, growing up in Sparta, you have a very different lifestyle. Like we talked about in another video. One of the things you do before joining the army is you go out and randomly kill one of those slaves without getting caught. It's a pretty harsh lifestyle. And of course, we already mentioned, babies at birth were, inspected to see if they looked healthy or not. If they didn't look healthy, then they were, killed right away. Spartans weren't, the nicest people, to say the least. Let's see. So let's take a look at what life was like for girls in Sparta. All right, so girls and women in Sparta. Let's see. So they didn't take time, making clothes. Of course, the slaves, the Helots of Sparta did. They didn't take time, but kind of these upper class women, they didn't take time making clothes like they probably would have in another place. They didn't take time making clothes. Also, they ran their family's household. So if the upper class people probably owned a farm, the Helots were doing all the work on it, but they owned it, so they were making sure that everything was going well in the farm, while the husband of the family was spending all their time off fighting and training for war. And they also spent a lot of time working out as well. So women were also active and very physically active and physically fit. Now, Spartans also, they had this big army because they were so scared that the Helots would rebel. Let's see. So there's the government there on page 268. A little bit. Let's focus. Let's get some notes on that for a second. So Sparta's government. There's two kings, but they basically lead during war. It's kind of the main thing that the king does. There's other officials that do most of the work. And of course, these would obviously be part of that, that upper class of Sparta who are, the warriors and so forth. Most of the people living in Sparta and the land around Sparta were slaves called helots who did all of the work. The Spartans did not. Now, Spartans are best known in history for some of the clever things that they would say. Here are a few great examples. Let's see. So, for example, when Philip of Macedonia was going to come and talk to them, he said that, "Hey, we're going to take you. We're going to enslave you. We're going to, if I invade and I defeat you, we're going to, your city will be destroyed, never rise again." And the Spartans replied, "If." They kind of these clever one-line answers. Another good one is one time a Spartan woman kind of said something to a guy in another Greek city, and the guy was like, "Hey, why are you letting a woman talk to me that way?" And she says, "We can talk to that because we can talk to you like that because we're the only ones who give birth to men." Saying that, hey, if you're from another Greek city, you're not really a man. Only Spartans are. And then, of course, the Spartans. This is kind of another thing. They would think, oh, this is a nice thing for a mom to say to their son as they go off to war. So when you're going off to war, a Spartan mom would tell their kid, "Come home with your shield or on it," meaning either come home with your shield because you won, or come back on your shield because you died. If you had to retreat and you dropped your shield, don't bother coming home. We talked about how they said we'll fight in the shade, and then my favorite one is right before the Battle of Thermopylae, when the Persians are about to fight the Spartans. The Persians are kind of confused, like, "Why are you trying to fight us? Please lay down your weapons and let us pass." And the Spartans responded, "Molon labe." I'm probably saying that wrong, but molon labe, which means come and get them. If you want our weapons, come and get them. Or, come and get them over my dead body, basically is what it's saying. So that's kind of the attitude and the cool things that the Spartans said over time. All right, let's get to Athens now. All right, so again, we're on page 266. So Athenians admire the mind, our book says. All right, so we have Athens, which is very different than Sparta. So let's see. All right, so boys and men in Athens. All right, so now this is focusing on, again, for the richest people, right? If you're randomly born in this time, you probably, the chances of being in the upper class is very small. So similar to people from Sparta, they had to learn to run, jump, and fight. but the training wasn't as harsh as in Sparta. So athletics were important, but not as athletics and fighting were important, but not as crazy as Sparta. I don't know if crazy is the right word, not as intense, we'll say. All right, and let's see. But unlike Spartan, the Athenian men didn't devote their whole lives to the army. So in Athens, you only served from 18 to 20 in the army, and then that was kind of like your training. And then if war would break out again, then the older people would fight. If a war was going on or something. Let's see. There's a lot more learning as well. Let's see. They also learned to read, write, sing, play musical instruments. And so forth. So there's, the Spartans could, there were Spartans that could read and write as well, but it wasn't as in Athens. They really focused on it. I guess one good way to look at it is in Athens, you could become well known and almost famous for being a good writer or poet or someone who wrote plays. Or played music. In Sparta, they really only cared how well of a warrior you were. That was what status was determined by. Let's see. Some rich families had private tutors. To study advanced things like philosophy, geometry, astronomy, and other subjects, and also to be good public speakers. And of course, in Athens, it's important that you're a good public speaker because democracy is a big deal in Athens, right? That's how the government was run. Let's see. Let's continue with this. But like the book says, most boys on page 269 on that bottom paragraph. Boys from poor families usually didn't get any education, although most of them could read and write at least a little. Most of the boys from poor families became farmers and grew crops, grew food for the city's richer citizens. A few went on to work with craftspeople to learn other trades. Because you also had to have people making things and making even the weapons and the metals. Athens, of course, was big into trading. So there were a lot of people in Athens who became good merchants as well. Let's talk about the girls and women in Athens. While many boys in Athens received the girls didn't. The girls got almost no education. Athenian men didn't think girls need to be educated. A few girls tried to read and write, but most girls only learned stuff like weaving and sewing. The women there had fewer rights than other city-states. And that's a good point because there's a lot of city-states in Greece at this time, and we're only really focusing on two, kind of the two extremes, Athens and Sparta. But there's a whole lot of other city-states as well, and each of them have their own, individual way of doing things as well. So the women, there's a whole list of things. The women could not The women couldn't serve in the government, leave their homes, except for social occasions, special occasions. Buy anything, own property, or disobey their husbands or fathers. Obviously, depending on what age you are. So, for women, life probably sounds a lot better in Sparta than Athens. Although in Athens you would actually get to spend more time with with your husband or father, because they wouldn't be off in the barracks most of the time like they would be in Sparta. Let's see. All right, now after Sparta and Athens worked together along with a lot of other Greeks to defeat the Persians and some of the Greeks who joined the Persians, we have what's known as the Peloponnesian War. Always misspell Peloponnesian. There we go. So the Peloponnesian War. So this is a war that breaks out between Athens and Sparta. All right, so after the Persian Wars end, Athens forms an alliance of a lot of city-states, and they wanted to continue to punish Persia and defend each other and protect trade in the Aegean Sea. If you look at the map on the top of page 270, that can be really, really helpful for you. Because the money was kept on the island of, part of this, each city-state gave money to the alliance, and because the money was kept on the island of Delos, which is in the middle of the Aegean Sea there, you can see it by where Athens is, this alliance is known as the Delian League. So after victory over Persia, let's see, Athens forms the Delian League. Which is an alliance to work together against Persia. Members contributed money to Athens for defense. Because like we talked about, the other day when we were looking at, the triremes at that time fighting each other, it took a lot of money to maintain all those boats and keep your army ready. So all these city-states would pitch in, yeah, Athens, you're going to protect us and help make sure that we can trade across the Aegean Sea. Remember, if you look at the map, what's right past the Ionian Greeks? That's the Persian Empire. So the Athenian navy would protect Greece from Persia, but it also kind of puffs up Athens and makes them important. Now, let's see. So Athens, and it starts out as kind of, hey, this is a good thing, but then Athens kind of gets a little bossy about it. The book says the Athenians began to treat other league members as subjects. They refused to let members quit the league and quit the league and forced more cities to join it. The Athenians even used the league's money to pay for buildings in Athens. Without even fighting, the Athenians made the Delian League an Athenian empire. Right, and like we talked, one of those big buildings is the Parthenon, which we talked about in the first video we watched about Greece. So Athens began to control other members. And of course, Sparta was like, hey, well, this doesn't look like something that's going to work out well for us. We don't want Athens to be the main powerful thing. So Sparta forms its own alliance called the Peloponnesian League. And it's made up of cities on the Peloponnesian Peninsula. So that bottom part of Greece there, you can see it on the top of the map, is called the Peloponnesian Peninsula. And so that was the Peloponnesian League.
Dad, why are you wearing that shirt?
Oh, because it's Tropical Tuesday. That's why I'm wearing the shirt. All right, so and Sparta then declares war on Athens. All right, let's see. So this is what's called the Peloponnesian War. And it is a war between Sparta and Athens that threatened to tear all of Greece apart. And it kind of did. So for a while, Sparta goes and attacks Athens. Sparta doesn't have a wall, but Athens does. So Sparta is surrounding Athens, hoping that they'll starve. The Athenian navy is able to keep bringing food to Athens and also go and attack Sparta's friends. And so Sparta had to send some of their soldiers to go defend other places. Sparta attacks Athens, but the navy keeps Athens supplied, and the Athenians attack Sparta's friends. So Athens having a bigger navy is really kind of a big bonus for them, because you can travel quicker on boats around, especially when the Aegean Sea there is a big thing. You can travel around quickly and go to different places. Look, there's even battles all the way in Syracuse, which is on the island of Sicily by Italy. The Greeks had cities all over the place, and almost all the Greeks kind of chose a side. I guess Crete and a few other places, but almost all the Greeks had to choose a side in this conflict. And then after 10 years, there was a truce. But let's see. Well, this starts. I'll put the later war with Athens in 431 BC. For 10 years, there was a truce. The Athenians could keep their empire. The Spartans went home. But then in 415, fighting begins again, and there's a disaster. The Athenians have a huge disaster fighting, trying to conquer Sicily, and most of their navy is destroyed again. And not again, but But that's obviously a big issue for the Athenians. Perdiccas again. In the invasion of Syracuse, the Athenian navy is destroyed. But it's a huge loss for the Athenians. And a huge defeat for the Athenians and a victory for the Spartans because in 404, after disease really weakens the people in Athens too, Sparta takes Athens. Now Sparta then rules a big section of Greece for about 30 years. But as you can see, the Spartans weren't probably like the nicest people. You wouldn't want them ruling over you, and a lot of Greek city-states kind of then rebel against Sparta. Sparta kind of placed their own tyrants, or king-type figures in charge of these Greek cities. And a lot of places they got kicked out. And then Thebes, which was one of the cities that originally sided with Persia during the wars. They were kind of like the third. They would be like top three. You have Athens, Sparta, Thebes as kind of the most powerful Greek city-states. And Thebes then finally defeats Sparta in a battle. All right, let's see. So Sparta takes Athens. Let's shift the notes here. Sparta controls Greece for 30 years until they are defeated by Thebes. And we don't have time to talk about it in depth today. But something worth looking up is how Thebes is able to defeat Sparta. They have what they do with their phalanx is instead of going like head to head, let's see, head to head, where they're really pushing on, they make their phalanx kind of an oblique phalanx. So it's like, well, I'll have to show you a picture when I get back to class. But it's like a slanted thing. So they're not, and the way they design is that, so that way they'll defeat some of Sparta's like most powerful guys, or most of the army. Oh, I need to look at it to be sure. We'll talk about the battle that Thebes defeats Sparta in, hopefully tomorrow when we get back to school, when I get back there. But yeah, that's what happens. Thebes is able to defeat Sparta because they change a military tactic that allows them to win instead. And I need to look it up a little bit more before I tell you a little bit more about it. Now, in this Peloponnesian War, Persia plays a pretty big role. Persia had funded both Sparta and Athens at different times in the conflict. So when Athens was winning, Sparta would try to help kind of prop. When Athens would look like Athens would be winning, they helped Sparta. When Sparta was winning, they helped Athens. And the Persians were like, well, we can't quite defeat these Greeks, but if we keep making them fight amongst ourselves, then we can kind of control what's going on. Persia was always good at finding other ways to win besides on the battlefield. Now, what the Peloponnesian War does, the big result of it, the major result is that Greece was weakened. Let's say specifically Athens and Sparta, especially, were weakened and would not be able to fight to the same level in future wars. Right? 'Cause, think about Sparta. Sparta, I think at the most sometimes they have close to like 10,000 soldiers. I think that might be the number, somewhere around there. This war, the last 30 years, a lot of Spartans are dying in this war. And you can't just, it's not like they're going to go train helots to be like regular Spartans. That's not how the Spartans did things. So, the Spartans win, for a while in the Peloponnesian War, but that they never reach that height again because the war really, really weakened them. And as you watch the video, Alexander the Great is the one who's going to come and take control of, Philip first, and then Alexander the Great are going to take control of lots of Greece and Persia after that. All right, that's our time for today. Make sure you get these done. We'll probably have the test next week, it looks like, because we still have sections 3 and 4. Hopefully we'll be able to finish those. Good chunk of those done this week, and then so I would say probably next week, Thursday or Friday, is when we'll be having our test. All right, guys, we'll see you later.